Yo. And we're back, part two, my interesting interview with my fellow candidate, good guy, Mr. Mitchell Toye. So as we left off, we are talking about the book you read there. I've noticed that as you read all that stuff there, it kept saying a reflection of our today's society, well, particularly Toronto, the basic needs, party election, denial of things that we're not receiving. I like what you said about the self-help, because it's so true. It's unfortunate to say that we say they have people that out there that are relying on, like putting the pressure on Olivia Chow or anybody that got elected. If you got elected, the pressure is like our savior. We need your help. We're afraid to do without you. Not necessarily that's ignorance, but just saying like the stuff you said about the philosophy of help, self-help. I believe that big time. I'll get a question for you. I studied philosophy when I was studying to be a priest, and we studied about all Eusebius, Philo, Josephus, Midrash, Thais, Lechi, Buddhism, Confucius. And you know it's about the whole part of all this history. All these are peacemakers and philosophers. And the one thing we're taught about, they all have one thing in common: the love of humanity. Now that love of humanity has transgressed from way back from when they first started, from Bible times to all world history, all world politics, and religion has grown and enriched societies. And all these peacemakers and all these philosophers, I find it so funny that they're still there. We're still relating to them. We're still quote famous politicians or famous philosophers. But the one thing that's still missing is we keep quoting, we keep going back and saying they did this way. He's a peacemaker. He is a great philosopher. He's a great strategist. But you know what? Why are we implementing it in society still? After all these historians and all these famous known people, Confucius and all that, I asked you, Mitchell, tell me a bit of Confucius you see around in Toronto society in our everyday living. You tell me what you see about Confucianism, you know,
What I
aspect.
see of Confucianism, the same way I see Confucianism in Toronto is the same way I see Christianity in the United States, where I remember Confucius had a student. I don't even think the student of Confucius was a direct student, but rather somebody that read Confucius's writings in China and decided, oh, we don't need people to choose to act this way. We need to force people to act this way. And so when we look at American evangelicals that say, if you do not act this way, you will go to hell. If you do not follow this, you will go to hell. That is not love. When we have a Chinese emperor saying, if you do not live this way, I will execute you, you are not loving people. You're not changing them inherently. You're trying to mechanistically bind them like puppets to get them to do what you want. But I think you even have figures like Napoleon or horrifying figures like Adolf Hitler that will call themselves Christians, that will call themselves spiritual leaders. And I believe that when religion is used by power, when there are state governed religions, it's just like the Holy Roman Empire. Would Yeshua, Jesus Christ, want there to be a Holy Roman Empire? I don't feel like that. I don't think there could be a holy empire in existence. I feel like they're almost that's almost an
Kind of
oxymoron.
like they're justifying themselves by using a religion or a philosopher. Say, well, he believes in this way. I stand by Confucius. I have the right to act like this way. Or I believe in Jesus. It's my right to be this because I believe in the Lord, thy God, Jesus Christ. But I can act this way. Meaning you're making excuse to your ignorance and your abusiveness and your hostility towards an individual and society, right? Like you said, you're gonna go to hell. You know, look at the evangelist Jerry Falwell. Look what he did. Look what his influence was. His says God's age is God's answers to homosexual. That one statement, I always remember that growing up. You know, that's using the perfect example. You're using the faith, and also just to add to you, none of these philosophers or the historians or these soothsayers. There's one thing they never do. They never give you an ultimatum in what their beliefs are, like Confucius or Buddhism. If you read Buddhism or the Midrash, there's uh, no doctrines of saying like you either do it this way or else. You never see any of the writings. Yet we put that there. We as humans put that there. We put these limitations into things we read. You know, like famous the Buddhist eight-step path. We people that truly follow that path, that's great. But a lot of them, they just say these are ultimatums. It's either this way, we can't go up this way, can't go there, we gotta go straight to the path. But we put limitations. We're all exactly what you said. You're gonna go to hell if you don't do it my way. Like I'm a Catholic. I go to church. I've had many battles with Christian Catholics. I find I'm gonna be ignorant here. I find there's four types of Catholics. I shouldn't say this. I'm saying because I experience this. There's the devout Catholics.
This is for illustrative purposes and not a statement of truth, everyone.
Yeah,
This
it's my opinion.
the four
My
Catholics parable is
and my
not an ultimatum of behavior.
it's my
Any apostles of Philip the Cruz, please do not put this into the canon.
Yes, put this part in mute, my fellow Christians. No, I'm kidding. So my opinion, my view, just in a comic way, there's four. I would say the four types of Catholics. Not saying it's ignorance, but just you see it sometimes. I've seen it been involved in many churches or religions for so many years. You see they call the habitual Catholics that go every day, right? You know,
Mhm.
and that's good that they go for their own purposes or reasons. Then you got the obligated Catholics, like they call them the EC people. The EC Catholics. They come Easter and Christmas time.
Yes.
They're two times a year. They fill the church, which kind of pisses me off. Guys, I always leave my regular seat when I go there. Then they got the devout Catholics. And then they got the business type Catholics. They're going there for business and want to make some money. You know, want to sell the business.
Ah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
Quite a
see
few of those.
people like that, and I was looking at some Confucius quotes, and I think there's two that relate to our discussion. Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance, and I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. And so when we're discussing the four types of
Hey,
Catholics,
did you miss one there? Is it on the same page?
oh well, I was looking at
No, there's
brainy
another one. I can't.
quotes.
One I'm thinking of. There's one that's one of his famous one I like. He was, I perceive, but I cannot comprehend unless I know the whole story. You see that one there in so many
Ah,
words?
that's very beautiful.
I remember my
And
confusion, all that drilling in your mind, all that education. I love that one.
and
It's like you perceive what you limited. I love that. It's one of my favorites. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
it does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
with these four types, the habitual, the obligatory, the business, what I feel like even amongst what does it mean to be fully devout? Like how do you define them? That's the one you skipped over. You explained the other three, but what does it mean truly to be a devout Catholic?
You can't be. You can't be. It's impossible. People got it is. I'm a Catholic. I study to be a priest. I can't say if I come out of ignorance and say, "Hey Mitchell, I'm a devout Catholic. I'm fully out there because I study to be a priest." That's bull. There's also the thing you cannot. If you're going to be a devout Catholic, then you lose all the aspects of what all the influences of the society are. Because basically, you're going against the grain of society, right? Well, look at Saint Francis with Sisi. That's a perfect example. He gave up everything, right? And still he had fights and arguments among his own people, even his fellow monks that got recruited, because they didn't want to go his full way as a devout Catholic. So that happens in society. Like you say, I'm a devout Catholic, right? I've seen many times, not being hypocritical, but people, they'll be devout, and then you go in the public, you see them in the gym working out, they when he just ignore you when he talks. But when you go to church, they'll like talk to you, and they say, "I'm a devout Catholic." Or then you get some people that, and I've don't even met people like this. I met quite a few. They said, "Well, I've sinned, but I can go to church and I can get forgiven, so you can just carry out the same sin." But I'm a devout Catholic. Okay, you're a devout Catholic. Makes me laugh. Yeah, there's no such thing as there is, but if people say I'm a devout Catholic or I'm a fully Catholic or I'm all the way, then that's just ego, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like the Pascal's wager. Like, well, you if you don't want to believe in God, you should because it might keep you from going to hell. It's like I there was a poem by Rumi, I believe, which is a woman walks through the desert carrying a bucket of water and then a bucket of kindling. And when one person asks her, why do you carry the buckets? She says, I carry them to douse the flames of hell and to set aflame the pastures of heaven. So the only reason one seeks the truth or the holy is for their self and not for reward and not out of fear. And that's a wild paraphrase. Please look it up at home, folks. But at the end of the day, I believe that we want to feel like we're doing something. I went to a protest that was outside of Queen's Park on a Saturday. It was basically talking about how if Doug Ford doesn't improve our working conditions, if we don't see the change we want, we will shut everything down.
Yeah.
And I was there and I made signs with my partner, and we passed them out. But one of the things I kept saying was, well, if we truly historically wish to make change, we have to split up into 10 groups of 100 or 1,000 and truly stop traffic, have a list of demands, like we want a living wage to be the minimum wage and all that. But people will go, they will chant in front of an empty government building that is being organized by the NDP and the teachers union, make empty demands, and then feel like they did something. And so when our protest, when our outlets are sanctioned, when our knowledge is not truly acted but recited, when we do not do as what we have seen, there are very few Christians I've ever met that have sold all of their possessions and have given them to the poor. I don't think I've met one. I
Right
don't
here,
think I've
buddy.
met.
Right here, buddy.
Oh,
We talking. I did when I gave it up. I was living in Richmond Hill. I'm not bragging here. I'm just part of the process of being a priest.
oh,
Yeah, it was part of. Yeah, I was in Richmond Hill back in 2003, and I gave up everything. I started my own job, my own company, landscaping. I gave that up. Had a calling. Make a short story. I gave everything up. I had a Salvation Army just down the road from my apartment. I gradually got rid of everything, and it came down to just the basics, clothing, and that was it, and just
that's
small items.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was a long process. Not like a long that was difficult because I was ready to do it. I accepted it, had to do with it, and then I learned how to do it without. And went for a couple of years. I got rid of my TV. People don't believe this. I got rid of my everything in my apartment, everything I own, every book I own, every luxury I own, every personal item. I mean, I kept a few things of the family stuff for myself as a person, like little things, but nothing major. So yeah, I was one of the gave everything up, and then because people asked, like, I had an interview or not, I had met one of the won't mention his name, but he accused me of running to be a mayor just for the money. I said, buddy, what's money to me? I live by it, right? You know. But I said, you know what? I gave up trying to earn money. I gave everyone my possessions. He didn't want to accept the fact that I had no ulterior motive. I said, I'm not running to be a mayor for the money. I'm running to help the people. But he couldn't comprehend the fact that, oh, you're just like the rest of them. You're all doing it for the money. I said, no, I'm not. If I wanted to do the money, I wouldn't, back to be studying me a priest, just getting rid of everything. Yeah. So when people ask me, like, maybe years later, they said, dude, you miss having all your personal possessions? And I said, you know what? I miss the memory of having it.
You
So,
miss the memory, so have you forgotten it?
no, meaning, I used to have, like, say, I used to love that book, but I don't miss the book, but I miss the memory of always missing it. But I don't, you know what I mean? I don't miss it anymore. But I miss that memory of having that memory to say, I love that book, my favorite book. I used to cherish that book in the corner there, and I used to have that memory. Go back home. Oh, it's a great memory. Somebody gave me that book, but now I don't miss it anymore. But when you get to the point of miss, yeah. So I actually have. I don't know if you. There's few people that a lot of people that are giving up things, personal stuff and all. So when you're ready to give it up all the way, and you learn to do without. I remember going downtown. I walked a lot downtown. Couldn't afford, didn't have any money to TTC. I walked downtown many times. It took me 3 hours, and I had limited money. I sell stuff. Like when I sold stuff, I had money for myself a little bit. So I had like a one coffee a day. That was my limit, right? And you go to McDonald's, you get a refill. Or we used to hang out with some of the homeless. We got to know some of the people on the streets, and we had like a little group called the Coffee Emporium. So like whoever got money would go buy a coffee, and they get two or three refills back then, and then the next person would get the coffee from you. Like Buddy would get the next coffee. So running for mayor, humble myself with all the experiences, just letting things go and living in poverty and just knowing what to do without, and learn how to skip meals. And I've skipped meals many times. I've actually lived on
Yep.
20 bucks, 20 bucks for 2 weeks, you know, and you have to control yourself. And when you're like, so you relate. So all these experiences, not bragging about, I've been through that. I'm a better person. No, it just makes me a humble person. It just says, you know what? It makes me a better person myself. So when I see people like in situations like the politics of the food industry and all that, that's my thing, right? You can relate with that because you've been through that process. That's why I find when you're running politics, you can't relate with people being the experiences yourself, like living, like looking for a job and all that. If you've lived off a certain income, if you've been given your dad's company or you're living off your family fortune, you can't relate. It's like the people in the office, when they spend millions, it's like candy. When I see money being wasted, I say, you know what? Like if you can see what they let $100, you can throw the like you and me both know we can take $100, we can expand that $100 and do so many good things. People say, oh, $100 is not that, because you're used to that kind of lifestyle. You used to seeing $100 is poverty. For us, it's like rich. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's one of the things I was discussing with Kiri Vadavilu actually with Socialist Action, because right near the end of the election, he called me and he said, I I wanted to talk to you about this, and once in a while, Kiri will remember that we were a part of the East Scarborough Tenants Union together, and we'll discuss things. And he says Barry thinks I should, who's basically the leader of Socialist Action. He says he thinks that we should spend the rest of our budget on advertising. And this was like 2, 3 days before voting day. And I said, if you spend that money on advertising, I don't think I'll ever trust your organization again. Because at the end of the day, the reason I stopped working with Socialist Action and the reason I stopped working with the Communist Party of Canada is two factors. The CIA and the FBI had a handbook for infiltrating leftist movements. Left wing meaning against the king and against the status quo of things, right meaning foundationally re reinforcing the status quo and reinforcing hierarchy or authority. And I said, we need to work with the tent cities. We need to go there. We need to make a network of people who have open bedrooms, that have garages, that have storehouses, anything we can do to house people. We need people teaching them. We need to have trenches that won't be ecologically harmful. We need to make sure that people have clean water. And they said, no, that's too difficult. And I said, we want to change society entirely. We want to make it better. We want and the main motivation of all of us theoretically and what motivated me into this was helping people. And it's just like the way my great grandmother Barbara Hartwell, she worked with the Salvation Army. And I volunteered with them and I worked with the Zeitgeist movement in Toronto and I even lived in their commune when my mom kicked me out when I was 17 years old. But the thing that always frustrated me is they would say either we don't have the money for that, or they would say it would take too much time. So when I was speaking with Socialist Action, I said you should make your whole campaign about helping people. And I personally want to create an organization whose poster in good faith and in application would be, we will feed you, we will house you, we will give you education, we will give you work, we are with you, we are you. I want an organization that does not see itself separate from the public, but sees itself as something that bolsters and supports the public, that is enmeshed with the people. And organizations that dogmatically separate themselves, or I see posters on the street in Parkdale that say, are you a communist? Come get organized with Fight Back. I've been a part of Fight Back when I was in university. These organizations, and I this is controversial to some people, but I am a communist. I am a socialist. I know those theories and applications throughout history have had difficulties, but I believe that when we work together, when we work in communities, when we understand our role in society as workers, or as Marx would say, the lumpen proletariat, when you discuss small business owners, when you discuss the homeless, when you discuss the criminal element, we have to understand that if we do not teach people how to survive in communities, if we do not create what is called communist realism, which is feeding people without expecting profit, which is housing people without expecting profit, just
we're
doing
profit,
what you can. Yeah, and
profit.
it's not,
That's all it is, right?
but and at the end of the day, these organizations are focused more on getting people who already believe these things to work with them and put their money into them rather than actually doing the material actions they need. Which leads me to the exciting idea that I wish to talk to you about, which is the three things we can do to improve our life today. And I would love to hear yours because, self-help is a bit of an epidemic right now. We have people that so desperately wish to find ways to quickly and easily improve their lives. But at the end of the day, it's quite simple. Speak with the people around you and genuinely say, things are tough right now. We need more friends. I would love to get to know you. My name is blank. we live around this area. Would you like to start a garden with me? Would you like to go for a walk with me? Would you like to speak with me and other neighbors? That's one thing you can do. The second thing I would say to do, move your body purposefully and do nothing but move your body at least once a day for as long as you can. Just be in your body, move what's tight, slowly work it. What's loose, build strength in it. Move your body in ways, squats or push-ups or wall push-ups. Use what's around you and truly just try to be with yourself with no distractions, no video guides. Just be with yourself. It's something I need to do more consistently. All of these things are. And the third thing that I think we need to do is be open to the fact that everything you may know might be wrong, that your perspective, that your view could be completely wrong, and be okay with that discomfort, because cognitive dissonance, the feeling that you are your ideas, you are your perspective, you are these things you cherish, and that any evidence or any reasoning or any actions or any even physical thing occurring in front of you, like people that believe the earth is flat and will do the same experiment thousands of times to try to prove themselves right, but can't. It shows us that in these times where people are so afraid of each other and are so willing to go into echo chambers online or even in their communities like cults, they're searching for that same sense of community, but it's not community in the beautiful blossoming of an individual in a bouquet of others, each of us a different flower with a different scent complementing each other, our roots converting different minerals into the nitrogen necessary. We instead try to find a truth. And I think the most important thing that we should understand, the thing that ties us together, is that contradiction is not unnatural. Contradictions exist within nature, and we can be contradicted in our lives. We can find and be shaken from our roots, from who we once were to somebody else, but that continuity of care or love that has been inlaid there from our family or our friends, even though our family can harm us, they can also love us, and there's a contradiction itself. These simple rules are not something somebody should expressly live their life with, but it's the fact that, like Confucius once said, life is very simple. It is us that make it complicated. And you, as somebody that gave up so much, you that somebody that was able to intricately build a service, a business that understands what it takes to succeed, even in a marginalized position, know that it's never enough for one person to change the world, but it's enough for one person to change themselves. And as somebody that studied in the priesthood and that looks at these figures and these philosophies, like I said before, it's a revolution of the mind. What do you think are your three rules, Phil, that you would say to your audience, that things that they should try to challenge themselves
First,
with?
first thing I say, after all you're talking, first thing I say in my mind is ego. Let go of the ego, right? I also say I have these four things I came up through the Bible in my own way of life, and I tell all nephews and nieces, and I
The
say
four
four.
types of Catholics, the
No, no,
four
no.
tenets of
Not the Catholics. No, no, no. My four words about the ego. If you can get these four things and say with simplicity, without any rupture in your whole system of defense, whatever, four things I say. If you can say to yourself and out loudly with no contradiction of yourself, and four things is I'm wrong, I'm sorry, thank you, and I need help. And I believe in those four things, right? Those four things you can say to yourself. You can actually admit that you make a mistake, say I'm wrong, then your ego is down. There's no ego. If you can say I need help, your ego is away because I need help. We can't live, like you say, we can't live alone in this world. We need each other. And that's lacking community spirit. Oh, I need help. I was wrong. I'm sorry is a big thing. People have a hard time saying I'm sorry. That's because that's actually admitting your ego is my ego can't accept the fact that I failed. Not in case you failed, you just made a mistake. If you didn't make any mistakes and lived a perfect life, you'd be so boring because you can't relate with that person, right? So those four things I believe that I've carried them for the last 25 years. I told my nephews and nieces, go out there, believe these four things, say to yourself, and also have a good sense of humor about anything. Because a lot of, like I said, all the stuff you just said, first thing I say is ego. Ego is such a downfall on each of us if we allow it, right? That's what I believe.
We even have figures that have had immense power that have the philosophy never say sorry. Look at Donald Trump. We have this. We want to believe people are faultless. Faultless. There's people in India who see Trump as a reincarnation of a major figure, or like, and it's because we want there's a reason that people can say fake it till you make it when it comes to confidence.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that confidence itself is an illusion of control that people flock towards.
Yeah, like
Because
these
if you
cults.
can, yeah,
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
can act confidently, you must be doing something, right? And as somebody that has pretended to be confident to the degree that people say that I'm confident, I see that. I think that we're better off meekly understanding the limits of our ignorance and accepting it and saying I'm sorry and saying I need help, like you're saying exactly. How would you transport those feelings or those statements into your organizational structures?
Well,
How?
I put all in my campaign. You sell my campaign
Oh, I
platform.
did.
Yeah, well, it's all about compassion, people. My whole platform is about people. Never mind about the promise of housing and crime. You know what? In 4 years, I won't have to change my platform. It'll be the same thing: housing, crime, TTC. The whole it'll be on the next 4 years. But you know what you said? They talk about housing. It had a housing debate. I'm sorry, a food security debate. There's not one talk about food security. Now you see in the news. Now they're saying that stats are showing that children that lack food have more mental health problems going to doctors. Well, really? You just figure that now? But this is not talked about. Not one, I'm not putting any of the top candidates down, but not one of them talked about food security or infrastructure, meaning getting things fixed within or helping. I had a thing on my platform about gardening. Community did in Montreal, community gardening. I just found out it's illegal to sell things out of your garden. Apparently, I don't rule it, but anyways, community gardening is helping each other. Not a case
Yeah.
of propping each other and ripping each other off. And you know what's really deterring for me is like a lot of my cousins are young. They watch these shows, these American Idol, like uh, all these the judges, you get thrown from a panel of judges and you get critiqued. And people watch these shows. And it sets up an illusion of perfection. If I don't go on stage and I do the perfect dance or routine or singing, they're gonna get critiqued by these four judges. It's all part of the mediocrity of society. That's what it's become, right? It's because I and it shows it back to the ego. I gotta look perfect. I'm watching these shows. I gotta be perfect like these people are. All they're gonna critique. Oh, I can't be like that. I refuse to be critiqued. I'm going to be perfect. My ego won't allow it. That's what it's all about. That just bugs me about that.
I think reality shows are some of the most prescient views of the dysfunction of this place. One of them, reality and game shows, one, they don't pay their participants, yet they make millions of dollars, and the amount of money they make on each episode is probably less than a fraction of the prizes.
Yeah.
So you have these people who are basically being actors without being paid. And I think it also is how much physical peril are you willing to put yourself in for a material good? You may never walk again. I remember they made that reality show about hard work. Oh, these people that work long hours for
Oh, you
low
mean
wages and
what's that show? Oh yeah, the it's on like the candidates and they go through all the different jobs or whatever. Like yeah.
let's
I'm
see
gonna ask
how
you
hard of a worker you are.
I'm gonna ask you this question. I never asked me. I'm gonna have I will use it. What do you think of these lotteries that raise money and they have these $1 million prizes like $1 million house or like $1 million you can win or cars and all this. I know what your
Oh,
philosophy is
like
about
the
it, but
Princess Margaret or
yeah, I mean, I don't. I know they're good. For me, when I say that, I say, you know what? I can't spend $100. I'd rather put it to the foundation or whatever, to charity. My question is, how much money is going to all these functions? Like, how much is Princess Margaret getting out of these lottery things going on? Right? Do they get more than what the prizes are? That's my question. Because I have
oh
not found the answer.
yes.
Do they get
I
more?
I'm
Are they all
well,
donations or tax write-ups or what?
my I can't speak it with authority on this, so this is speculation. But to speak rhetorically, my science teacher always used to call the Ontario lottery fool's taxes, because you you effectively have people competing for something that if we took all of the money spent on the lottery and then redistributed it back to people evenly, they'd be in better places than they'd
Oh
start
yeah,
out
yeah, I
with.
believe that. I also
I
I give this last
how,
couple of years. I was saying, why did the government just give everybody $1 million? You'll solve a lot of problems right there. Here's $1 million.
It would.
There's no competition between the
Billionaires would
rich.
be the new millionaires, and I would love it.
I had a couple of rich old ex friends that I went through the process with them about having them have my money and bragging and boasting. But you know what? Make a story short. When I started making good money at a good job at a working plant, I started saying, "Well, I can buy that for you now," and that just changed the whole ego, like the whole because I was always known as the guy that made little, I could afford little. Then I was like, they expect less from me for a gift, but now I can afford what they are. Oh no, I can afford that dinner plate, that $1,000 dinner plate. Oh wow, that just changed the attitude because now I'm not. There's no competition, right? This is my saying. You're gonna laugh. Rich people need poor people to make them feel better.
Yep, they
Not putting
do.
rich people, not putting rich because I know there are a lot of rich people that actually help a lot of people that are in poverty and they do good causes. I'm just saying,
Philanthropy,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I mean, but the philanthropy is usually a fraction of the actual wealth they have.
Well, the back to the not quoting the Bible, but one of my favorite parables is I don't you read the Bible, but there's a story of uh at a tax center where this woman, these people are these politicians in the Bible, they're putting what they had excess in the poor box. This woman put what she had left, like 1 or 2 cents. And she had it well, she gave what all she had, but the others gave what they could. You know what I mean? When they had when people talk about donations and I give millions of dollars, my always question is, well, how much do you have left over? You know?
Yeah, exactly. I think that we also have to understand maybe we could do something like a people's lottery where every person that contributes, even if you contribute a dime, you get back an even
Yeah, that
amount
sounds
of
cool.
whatever's raised. I think that another factor that we need to focus on, I think Food Share Toronto is doing great work. And a lot of the programs aren't really known about people, but they have community kitchens, they have
Yeah,
community composting things,
yeah,
and they'll help out these communities. I think in these times where we have these record profits, and as many people say, profits are the unpaid wages of the working class. When you work for a wage, you're being paid less than what you generate for your business.
yeah.
And that if we had democracy at work, people would be paid evenly or according to the value of their contribution. I think that one of the biggest issues I had with a lot of these organizations, especially with socialist action, is that when I brought up the Black Panther Party's child food program, I was told that it was charity. And I think that there's two issues. One, I don't think I do feel like charity is if the wealthy of Victorian England give the chimney sweeps and orphans a Christmas dinner, that doesn't remove the sin of their exploitation of those very children or the fact that they put them in the poverty that they're in. I think that if I could put forth a pari, a mirage, a goal for us to try to reach and what we're fighting for is that if the enemies of humanity, or I shouldn't call them enemies. I have no enemies. I like that statement. I have no enemies. When you see no enemies, you only see friends. But if the issue with 80% of wealth being controlled by 1% of power, 1% of people, is that money is power, then we have to either completely devalue money or or like you were said, give everybody $1 million. But we'll never see that because the same institutions that control and deal with these things are the same ones that profit off poverty. At the end of the day, I believe that any organization that wishes to better its community and the world has to operate not off of the concepts of wealth, but off the concepts of aiding others in the self. And I think that we need to take in a lot of indigenous knowledge to get there. Food medicine. We need to be getting busfuls of kids to reserves to interact with and educate each other and bring back these lessons. We need to be working together every way that we can. And when we build up that consistency to involve ourselves, when we build up that consistency to see other human beings not as a threat, but as another self, another person that is trying to get through, and we don't resent them. We don't feel like when people say terms like sheeple, like I've at times have been so angry or depressed that I go, why do we keep, well, like the world is burning, the ice caps are melting, and it's because people are scared and they think they're doing the best thing that they can. And so, viewer and Phil, I believe that what we should strive for is to give people an alternative. We
Well,
don't have to change the world. We just have to give something somebody hasn't been able to do.
you said it earlier. You said it early in the conversation. Profit. As long as we think we're doing things with the profit, there's a profit involved with the end result. I'm doing this for you, but there's a profit. Like you said earlier, profit. As long as you have profit in your mind, we're doing good for others, then you're going to defeat the person of being human, being compassionate. Meaning, like, I'm going to give you this much. Well, what's in it for me? Nonprofit housing, where'd they go? We don't have that many as much as anymore, right? We get rid of like all these politicians. Like that's the way they think. I'm investing in your thing. I'm gonna give back to the community, but where's the profit in for me? What's a kickback? You got to quit thinking like that, and that's the problem. Profit is the downfall, and it just there's no compassion in it. There's just what's in it for me. I put in my excess. I give you all that, but what's in it for me? And that's what the profit is. People give to the church. I give my excess. I give what I can. Well, can you give the most, or what is that what you need, or what you have, whatever. So profit, like I said earlier, profit, as long as profit, that word is in any kind of organization about donating and charity wise and all that, and people make errors about how much they give. It's all about profit and ego. So profit and ego, take those two words out of there. We're compassionate for the people like we do. Like, you see a buddy there needs a hand. And there ever be people that go like, I bought you this gift. Go, oh, I don't know. I get something back for you. I feel obligated. I go, no, you don't. I just bet because I like you and I love you and I think you're a good guy, but it gets to you. Oh, I can't handle that because my ego can't accept the fact that you have compassion for me, but what's in it for me? What have I done?
Or they feel like your compassion is a debt, like they
It
want
is,
to
yeah, and that's
even
what it
it.
is. Yeah, that's it. There's no debt involved. That we have to get that out of our system. Like you said, community
Love.
gardens, wealth, yeah, community gardens. Can you imagine we all had $1 million, the government said? There'd be no competition for working.
If 1 in 5 households in this city had a chicken coop, there would be no chicken industry. And they proved that theory in Belgium, in a city, by having these state-sponsored chicken coops. But one thing, Jeffrey Tunney, another just because I only know we have 2 minutes left, viewer. Bartering is illegal in Canada. And growing your own food on your front lawn in Toronto is legal. But once again, if everybody is doing something, it's not against the law, and there is reason nobody got arrested at 420 festivals in Toronto. So if we all start growing gardens on our front lawns, they're not going to be able to find all of us. If we all
Seriously,
start bartering, they're not going to be able to
who made
stop all of
that?
us.
Who made it illegal? What did they do back in the prairie days? Back in the Canada was just settling down. You can't grow food in your property. Well, you're feeding your neighbor, right? Give me a break. It's all Canadian history is based on food production, based on not productivity and profit. It's based on necessity of helping your neighbor, of helping your country. When we went to war, do you make a profit in war? They say like, I can't grow these vegetables in my garden because I'm going to get charged. But it's got to be the people, the troops. That whole thing about profit and about not growing illegal to grow in your garden and selling. Go to Montreal and see how it's done. Seriously,
Yeah,
Just
exactly. I
go.
would love to go to Montreal.
Oh, good.
Anyways, Phil, I'm
Oh,
glad that I took this cruise with you. And I will say, viewer, if you want to see more of what I'm saying, check me out on TikTok at Whamsies Wow, WHAMSIESWOW, or on Instagram at Goofy Toofy Rutro, which is GOOFY TOOFYRUHROH. And once again, thank you so much, Phil.
okay. So
This was a
send,
relaxing ride on the
send me your
waves.
send me your links. I'll put it on the interview. Okay.
Beautiful.
Thanks for coming for the interview. We'll do another one. I love talking to you. A good guy.
Yeah.
Smart guy. I love challenging the brain. I love it.
All right. Take it easy.
Have a good night, eh? And I'll send you the videos and all. Just send me the links and we'll copy it down. Okay, so I'll
Peace and
just say
love.
goodbye.
Yep.
And
Sounds
yeah,
good.
peace and love. Yeah, like John Lennon.